Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson. Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Sure. Yeah, I slept almost 4 hours last night.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. The precipice of Title 42 being repealed and the crisis at the border spreading past border towns. It already has, in part thanks to Governor Greg Abbott and to a lesser extent Governor Ron DeSantis helping New York and Chicago live their values. Governor Abbott wants to remind people that all he is doing is facilitating travel from migrants to this country to places they want to go.
Actually, their cities are chosen. They're the chosen cities by the migrants themselves. Understand this, and that is every one of these migrants who gets on a bus, they volunteer to go, and they choose the city they go to. They want to go to New York. They want to go to Chicago and these other cities. And so this is a complete voluntary process where, again, we're sending them to sanctuary cities that are embracing and welcoming these migrants who've come across the border.
We talked to a former ICE director, Tom Homan, yesterday, and he said the security situation at the border is more concerning to him right now than it's been in his 35 years in law enforcement. That's how dire he believes the situation is. And, of course, there doesn't seem to be much political willpower from the Biden administration to do anything about it other than to, lie about it. 90% reduction in illegal crossings, as KJP said earlier this week. For more on this topic and in the context of presidential politics, please be joined by Salena Zito, national political reporter, author of the book, The Great Revolt Inside the Populist Coalition Reshaping American Politics. And you can always get Salena Zito's latest at selenazito.com, selenazito.com for her reporting. Salena, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. So, you're one of our favorite reporters because you're outside the Beltway and you ambulate around the country to talk to actual three-dimensional human beings. So where do you think the border situation registers with middle-income voters in swing states that are looking at lawlessness at the border as they're seeing lawlessness in big cities where they choose not to live?
Well, the biggest impact that people feel that live, miles from the border is the trafficking of the fentanyl. That is having the largest impact on the American heart and soul. The fentanyl crisis is completely and totally out of control. Fentanyl is made in China, is transported from China to South America, and then happily brought across for lots and lots of money by the cartels. And they navigate between, people that are actually escaping horrendous conditions or looking for a better life, and infiltrate those people making that passage, and are met by coyotes and find themselves or find their way, into small towns, big towns, farm towns, big cities, and the impact has been absolutely devastating.
And so the response from the administration, because do you think that people are connecting those dots, right? Everything that you just said, then saying, well, this is being directly exacerbated by the lawlessness at the border that has been allowed by Biden.
Absolutely. People are not dumb. They understand and they see where it's coming from, and they see that it's escalating. And they're able to make that connection that the escalation of the border is escalating these drugs that are in our that are not just impacting adults who want to take fentanyl, but they're impacting our children, and being disguised as different kinds of drugs that are laced with fentanyl that have proved to be fatal.
On another matter, this sort of less visceral and probably getting less attention in terms of people's mind share, the debt ceiling matter, and not so much on that the specifics of it, McCarthy's plan or the esoteric details, but the positioning of the Republican Party that McCarthy has been able to affect here. Where, look, we have a plan. We passed our plan. We're willing to sit down and talk about our plan versus what you want to do, and come to some sort of compromise. Henninger, Dan Henninger, writing the Wall Street Journal, it sort of begins to undermine, continues to chip away at this, Republican Party, the party of iconoclasts and extremism. Well, here you have somebody who came up with a plan, to pass this plan, who's willing to sit down and talk to the other side about the plan. How is that impacting Republican Party positioning ahead of 24?
Well, I think McCarthy was underestimated. I think people thought that he didn't have the wherewithal to pull this sort of fractious group of Republicans together, who have different goals and come from different places, and he pulled them together, and he had a plan, like you said, and he passed it. And he's like, all right, guys, let's go. Let's come on, President Biden. And I think no one is more surprised that happened than Biden and his administration. And now they're like, well, now we have to actually talk to them. And
Yeah.
they don't want to talk to them. They don't want to compromise. They want to go. See, the Democrats do not have a narrative if they can't say ultra extreme MAGA Republican.
Right.
And what McCarthy has come across and said, we have a plan, here it is, let's go. All of a sudden it's like, oh, wait, they're normal? I can't. I have to call them ultra MAGA. I don't know how to do this, right? That's the White House's positioning right now is sort of like melting because they can't do and say the words like they want the Republicans to be, have their hair on fire. They can't deal with normal, procedure.
Now, is there an appetite or anybody excited about Ron DeSantis running for president?
Absolutely. I just caution people. I have several stories in Pennsylvania, but also across the country, talking to Republican primary voters. And there's a nuance there that I think my profession is missing, and I think that is important. Voters are say, I like Donald Trump. I like what he did. However, I'm ready to move on. A lot of them are embarrassed to say that in front of their family because they think they'll get in trouble. It's sort of like the opposite of 2016 when voters were afraid to say they like Trump over Hillary Clinton. Now they're afraid to say they like DeSantis over Donald Trump because they don't understand. They don't know what their families will be. I had one interesting conversation with two family members, a husband and wife. We were just sitting and talking, and they were like, they were both like, oh, Donald Trump, we love Donald Trump. Well, the wife went to the ladies' room, and the husband said, I like Donald Trump, but I'm voting for Ron DeSantis. And the funnier part was when he went to the restroom, she said the same thing. And so I think that no one is inevitable, and I think this is going to be a robust primary, and voters oftentimes look towards the future. That was the problem Jeb Bush faced in 2016. He was thought of as sort of an extension of his brother and his father's candidacy. And that's why Trump was able to sort of upset the apple cart. And I think that a lot of voters look at DeSantis the same way. They see him as the future. Voters often don't look in the rearview mirror when they vote. And they also, as one woman said to me, walk and chew gum. They can like Donald Trump, but still vote for someone else.
Sure. If there is a third lane that opens, who do you think of the other candidates is best positioned to fill it? Do you get the sense that anybody is starting to get some traction in terms of Trump, DeSantis, or this other guy, Vivek Ramaswamy, who's pretty sharp and very aggressive and has built a pretty good media profile out there, Tim Scott, Nikki Haley? Anybody you think that's if a third lane does open up, who's best positioned?
I wouldn't underestimate Tim Scott. He's really, really beloved, and people like him. People like that he's aspirational. If people go to SelenaZito.com, check out my interview with him. In fact, I have interviewed every single Republican running for the primary or thinking about running. And the interview is really fascinating. And I think, and I found some very strong qualities that I think voters are going to respond to once the campaign kicks off.
Yeah, and the other thing that's interesting about Scott, too, is that he's got a pretty good stockpile of cash to start a presidential campaign.
Yeah.
So he's got the money to compete as well, at least, out of the gate, he certainly does.
He does. Ron DeSantis has an...
Well, he's got a lot. I mean,
holy heck!
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's third lane, right?
Right.
It's third lane, and I tend to agree with you about Tim Scott. Salena Zito, national political reporter, author of The Great Revolt, Inside the Populist Coalition, Reshaping American Politics, and as she mentioned, get all of her reporting, all of these interviews with all the GOP presidential aspirants, SelenaZito.com. Salena, thanks as always. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much. Have a great day. It sounds like your weather's going to be amazing.
Oh, yeah.
It's wonderful.
Which
here.
could only bring
I'm jealous.
high crime. All right. Thanks, Elaine. She joined us. Yeah, she joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
This is the morning show more Chicago radio listeners are choosing. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Balance of Nature.